Good afternoon to you all. Welcome. We are in CITTASLOW International headquarters in Oriveto. And today we have an interesting webinar about CITTASLOW education program and project. I am with our international CITTASLOW president, Milioni. Welcome, President.
Thank you.
From the town of Asolo. He is the mayor of Asolo, you know. And we are talking together about CITTASLOW education, how to have a new generation of the CITTASLOW citizen. This is the core matter today on the table. Two levels today in the webinar. The first is CITTASLOW as permanent school and permanent interconnection between administration and schools. Second is CITTASLOW as a civic or awareness education. This second level was will be introduced from the Vice President of CITTASLOW International and Coordinator of Polish Network, Jacek Kostka from Poland. And also another third level is social cohesion by the Mayor of Biskupiec. But there are many, you know, many issues about CITTASLOW education, but in very short, I note a few of them. For example, local contests, rural contests, and little towns contests. The challenge is to innovate the school, assuring the high standard in education. Second is the importance of story and geography. How they are what define us, and how to empower our learners of all ages about. The third could be the importance of the community of learning, a community of learning under CITTASLOW. And the fourth, not last, is bring Europe into our school. And not a case that today we have invited Gilleran of eTwinning platform that is one of the speakers in the webinar. Thank you so much. We have divided the webinar speakers in three levels. The first two, Sabine Storme and Gilleran, speaking about Europe. Another three, Mondin, Cristina of Museo Civico di Asolo, CITTASLOW, Irene Milioni from primary school Oriveto CITTASLOW, teacher, and Pierre Boumati, Cazaubon, CITTASLOW representative in France. Three case history of project just realized in the CITTASLOW. The third part is a political part with two mayors from the Polish network. I just announced it, Jacek Kostka from Górowo, Iławeckie, CITTASLOW, and Kamil Kotlowski, mayor of Biskupiec. The other is Belluno mayor, is Jacopo Massaro, mayor of Belluno CITTASLOW, Italy. And we will conclude with the Timo Nattemeyer, mayor of Bad Essen. Welcome, Burgmeister. So, no other word, and the stage, if Sabine is not yet connected, we go to the second speaker, Gilleran of eTwinning platform. Thank you for the participation. eTwinning is, you know, it's a European international platform joining manager, teachers, and schools everywhere to dialogue, to connect. Please, Anne.
Thank you very much, everybody, and good afternoon. I'm just opening my presentation here. I hope you can see it. And it is indeed a pleasure to be invited to speak to this assembly. Without further ado, I am going to start my slideshow. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of background first, because we live in such a challenging world, and I think the Cittaslow movement is very aware of all the challenges that face societies, teachers, adults, children in this digital, particularly the digital society. And I want to look, first of all, at the kind of elements that educators need to think about as tools that young people need in order to work and navigate this digital world. Problem solving, of course, is one of them. Critical thinking, project-based learning, collaborative learning, because nowadays we do everything collaboratively, working in teams. Communication and flexibility, of course, is extremely important. And most important at all is this element of resilience. And I think this element of resilience is the one that has been most challenged, if you like, in this very difficult year that we've all just been through. And we need, of course, the ability to understand and use technology. And one of the ways of doing this is eTwinning. And eTwinning is about all of these things. And it's about connecting people and putting them together to do this, as I will show you later on in my presentation. So what is eTwinning? Yes, it is a platform, but more importantly, it's a community. So it's a community that involves pupils, schools, and teachers all across Europe and indeed beyond. And on the screen, you have a screenshot taken from today of the number of teachers, schools, and projects that are currently involved in eTwinning. So it's a huge community. And it's funded by the European Commission under the Erasmus program. And any of the activities, tools, approaches, professional development that's offered within the eTwinning platform is totally free for teachers. So there's no cost involved anywhere at all. When you talk about eTwinning, there are 3 levels to the platform itself. The first one is the public one, where, you know, if you all clicked now on this www.etwinning.net, this is where you'd go. The public, which gives lots of information about eTwinning, etc. But if you register, if you are a teacher and you register, and the platform is open to all teachers from, you know, preschool age groups all the way up to IVET schools. So a huge range of teachers can avail of the services of eTwinning. If you register, you come to a personal desktop called eTwinning Live, which is your desktop, your interface with the community, the eTwinning community. If you then go further and you register a project with another school or another teacher in another country, then you get a personal working space for that particular project. And you might have 3 projects running at once. Each of those projects will have a personal working space, which is totally safe in terms of internet safety, because you can invite your students there. It's like a walled garden. So it cannot be accessed by anybody else unless you give permission to somebody else to access it. So that's a big feature that is very attractive for a lot of teachers in eTwinning. So what do teachers do in this community? Well, they do 5 different things. I've picked out 5 things. They do lots of other things as well, but the 5 most important things, I think, they connect. So I know that your movement is all about connections. It's all about connections between cities in one country, towns in one country with another. eTwinning is also about connecting. It's about connecting teachers from one country with teachers from another country. I've spoken about eTwinning Live. This is where the connection happens. So once you register for eTwinning, this is where all that connection begins to take place. The second thing they do is participate. and they have a huge choice of things to participate in, apart from projects altogether. They can join events, and we have around 1,000 different events a year. They can join a group, and we have 6,000 currently to choose from. But I was also thinking that, you know, your teachers in your Cittaslow's different cities, if they wanted to come together on the eTwinning platform, they could form a group, a Cittaslow teachers group, specifically on this platform, where they could interchange, interact, and work with each other, which would be an interesting idea for you, I think. They collaborate, and this is the whole project building thing. We have so many different partner finding forums where teachers can go in and look for like-minded teachers to do projects with. And they collaborate through projects. Here are some interesting examples, but I'm not going to go into details because I have some other projects to show you a little bit later on. But the range of projects, the subjects of projects is totally open. They can do a project on anything they like. And I must mention that in every country, and currently there are 43 countries involved in eTwinning, that in every country there is a national support organization specifically for eTwinning. In Italy, it's Indira. In Poland, it's FRSE, a very active agency, and you'll find them a different one in each country. And indeed, both Italy and Poland are among the most active eTwinning countries at the moment. Teachers can also learn and develop, and they do this both formally and informally, as you can see from this slide. So you have formal, online formal events. We have a lot of professional development. We have short courses. We have courses for specific roles in eTwinning, such as eTwinning ambassadors. We have courses for moderators, people who moderate groups. We have online seminars, and we so that's online formal. The MOOCs, of course, should also be in online formal, because MOOCs were started about 2 years ago, massive online learning courses, and they have proved extremely popular. Then, of course, with the informal, the groups, the eTwinning live events that I've mentioned previously. We also have a whole series of materials where teachers can guide themselves, if you like, through learning about project work, project-based learning, etc. We have peer learning. The peer learning comes mostly through involvement in eTwinning projects, and of course by involvement with this role of this special group of eTwinners called eTwinning ambassadors. And finally, we have, sadly not this year, not last year either, we have face-to-face activities. These hopefully will resume again in 2022, but they didn't take place in 2020 at all, unfortunately. But they are workshops where teachers from different countries come together. These are called professional development workshops. We have seminars, but we also have an annual conference, etc. So the other thing that is very popular in eTwinning is to celebrate. So we celebrate things like, we have campaigns. So every year we have 2 campaigns a year. This year our theme is media literacy and disinformation. Last year our theme was climate change, the whole aspect of climate change. Conference that I mentioned, role recognition and quality recognition. It's the only action in education at the moment in Europe that will allow teachers to apply for recognition of the quality of the work they do. So we have several levels of quality labels for individual teachers in their project work. And we also have a fairly recent label for schools called the eTwinning schools. and these are recognized as leaders in their areas, in digital literacy, in e-safety, in a whole range of things. And all of these have award ceremonies around them. So we celebrate a lot in eTwinning, which was part of its appeal, I think. So what do teachers get from being involved in this community? Well, I'm going to show you, this is a survey, we do a survey like this every 2 years, and I let teachers speak for themselves. So they will tell us, in the last one we did, which is in 2019, they told us where they felt they had really been positively impacted by their involvement in eTwinning. And if you are involved in education, you will immediately recognize that the kinds of things that they're saying here in terms of where they have been positively impacted are just the skills that are currently being expounded as the ideal ones to have to cope with the changes and the impact of technology on education. This has to do with their teaching and learning technologies. Now, I know that part of your philosophy is to an extent to turn off the technologies, and I'm quite at one with you at that. On the other hand, the technologies are a reality in our lives, so it's a question of balancing being able to cope with it, being able to deal with it, to be able to use it to your advantage, and at the same time not to be led by it, misled by it, etc. So this is on teachers. There's also an interesting one on students. The teachers are telling us that students remain in formal schooling for longer periods. That I find very interesting. That many situations where students might be tempted to drop out, their involvement in eTwinning has kept them at school for longer. It has improved their attendance also at school. It has helped their autonomous learning and their digital skills, etc., etc., etc. I won't go to the whole slide. Most interestingly, it increases student motivation, and that I find interesting. I wonder if the year that we've just had will have impacted at all on this, if for the next monitoring report, which will be due to be run this year, asking somewhat similar questions. So it'll be interesting to see. So eTwinning provides a platform for you as teachers to learn, discuss, and take part in the digital world. It also provides a platform for you to facilitate your pupils to discuss and take part in the digital world. So, you have it both for teachers and for pupils. I just wanted to show you examples of two particular projects. This one is done about 2 or 3 years ago. It started 5 years ago, but it finished about 2 years ago, called Migrants and Refugees. And this was done by these 4 countries where the young people involved had to go out and they interviewed and spent time with people, migrants who had come into their country. And some of the stories that they came across and some of the things they highlighted in this brought about an awareness of being in the shoes of the other, as it were, in a way that you could never do in a classroom with books or TV programs or whatever. So this was really learning through doing, learning through action, an amazing project. This one is from this year, and it's this one is about climate change. It's about preserving nature. It's about looking at your local environment, particularly the trees in your local environment, and see how can we preserve them, how can we keep them, how can we protect them. again, this was a prize-winning project, a really, really excellent project. If I talk to you about the Digital Competence Framework, which is the European Digital Competence Framework, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, where we talk about information and data literacy, these are the areas that they feel that we should all be competent in: communication and collaboration, digital, being able to create digital content, to be able to solve problems, and to be aware of the dangers and protect ourselves online. And if you were to take these 5 areas and put them against any eTwinning project, you will find that the elements, the sub-elements of each of these 5 areas will be found in most eTwinning projects. So eTwinning projects, although they are relating to a specific topic or subject, in addition, they are promoting the soft learning, the skills that is needed to navigate, if you like, the digital world. In terms of eTwinning, we have a series of support agencies, organizations that support us in our work. They're called Friends of eTwinning. And these people contribute enormously to our work by giving webinars, by attending conferences and giving workshops, etc. And I'm happy to say that the Cittaslow movement is a friend of eTwinning. So that is why I'm here today. And I want to say to you that, if you are, we have several mayors of towns here, if you are interested in suggesting to the schools of your town to form eTwinning projects with the schools of other towns in the Cittaslow movement, I think that would be a really beneficial element for you to explore. And indeed, I think there are many ways at central level, the central support service where I work with, there would be many ways in which we could consider how we could best support you in promoting that activity. So, that is something that maybe we can discuss in the future. I think now that this is my final slide, if there are teachers watching, it's now over to you. Register for eTwinning, that's your first step. Start in a very simple way, just maybe do a professional development course or a short course, or, join an event. Then maybe you'll do a project, Don't be too ambitious to begin with, and don't be afraid to fail, because we have hundreds of eTwinners who, did a project, and the first time they did it, it didn't work out so well, but they did it again. And each time they learned and became more confident. In eTwinning, you have to take advantage of all the opportunities that are available to you within the eTwinning community and become involved. And if you do that, then you will, like in any experience in life, you will get the best out of it. We believe that individual teachers can really make a difference, both in the lives of their schools, but also in the lives of their students. And I'm going to leave you there. So thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, if you have any. And maybe I'll stop sharing my screen now.
And Gilleran, we have 1 million of questions, but I'm sorry, but it is impossible today in our webinar, but in the next, consider that eTwinning, it's a world of opportunities, And
exactly.
Wisdom sharing, everything. It's so important. You said that eTwinning, it is a platform, but overall is a community.
Exactly.
Cittaslow is a slow community, So we are really a good friends of yours, absolutely. It is very natural to cooperate together. Thank you for your smart and interesting contribution. We go on to the other speech by Cristina Mondin about educational workshop for young students at the local museum and much more in Asolo, Cittaslow, Italy. Please, Cristina. Welcome.
Buongiorno a tutti. Allora, il mio
Good morning, everybody. My PowerPoint will be activated from the headquarters. I would like to take this occasion to thank Mauro Milioni as president of CITTASLOW INTERNATIONal and major of Asolo, Pier Giorgio Oriveto, Secretary General of CITTASLOW, and all of the speakers and organizers that have worked for the perfect success of these events. You were really perfect. I would like to show you a local context, the one of Asolo, of cultural heritage of Asolo. This is a medieval village with a museum and a castle, a fortress. Therefore, we have a very complex context. We can start with the first slide. To communicate historical events is not an easy task because the objective is to make centers alive for the education of future generations. Intended as a meeting point of various competencies on the long term. The museum is a place where history, culture, traditions of a place are presented to the audience, intended as not just as tourists, but also citizens, inhabitants of the territory. How to present them, therefore, meanwhile, so first of all, they do not have to be boring. One of the main issues of museums and places of culture that have ruined my generation and the previous generation is to have structures that are presented in a very less attractive way, where an adult guide presented what there is in the museum without any empathy, sympathy towards what is being said for the next generations. And this approach has changed over the last 20 years and has evolved more and more, and has this need to evolve thanks to the fact that we have technologies and people. The target audience are no more the people of the last generations, but we need new formula that attract the young people with the new technologies. So the museum has to be understood as a meeting point, and we have seen that and as soon as it was possible to reopen those places after the lockdown, we have noticed that the people needed new meeting points and needed more involving activities. So we have seen that museums and cultural places have become a very attractive place. So as a rediscovery of those meeting points for education. Another objective that we have set as cultural place is to have fun. So not a place where you cannot do anything, but where you can play, you can learn, and you can have challenges. And this is the first target that we have set for in order to renew and redevelop a village that has an history of many thousand years. So the museum was born as a place of experience and meeting. The first farms and the institutions, the schools that are our target audience are schools since the early age, and then to offer a possibility also to families. The museum is able to offer to make a cultural offer that is more free and is linked to the territory and can deal with matters that in other places like at school cannot be dealt with, because at school we have programs. Instead, we have an offer over the territory, and this regards the history of the place, the cultural background of previous generations that allowed the growth of the city. So the cities so the children are put into a connection with their territory and their origin since the beginning. Let's go further with the next slide. Beside school, the other important element of social life of new generations is to give support to families. So museums and cultural places should be understood as a safe place, first of all, where adults and children feel welcome and feel safe and protected, where they can express what they are freely, to express themselves freely according to the new experiences and finding new materials, new objects, sharing spaces and sharing with the children of various ages the possibilities to do similar things. These are new experiences, and they are also aimed at the families that need, and we have noticed that during the pandemic, to have retrieve some places and spaces of freedom. So cultural activities have been conceived as an aggregation a moment for the people, where parents can feel free to use the spaces and places in a different way. A particular proposal that is made at museum is to offer events. They can visit the city, the village. So the parents have to be free to know more about the place where children are in a safe and interesting, attractive place. What can do a museum for the family? We have said that the family shall feel free to leave their children in those places, but something we really care about is the fact that the family can remain united and do experiences in the same place, and find back those moments of cultural sharing within the family. So the museum is understood as a place of aggregation. The question is, what can the family do in a museum or in cultural places? Cittaslow has taught us that one of those things is eating. You can see a table with food. This is an initiative that was organized time ago before the pandemic. In this event dealt with different topics. Tomorrow, one of our colleagues will go in detail with the archaeological discoveries of our place. Of course, we have at the anniversary of the end of the war, and in this framework, we have considered to let our audience to experience what was food during the war and after the war. So a family that shares a lunch with food that are still common on our territories, but very often no more parts of our dishes at restaurants and at home. So this is a culinary experience linked to the traditions that are transmitted. Another thing that families can do together is walking. So be together to walk, and our intention is not to make activities that are boring, or a simple guided tour, but we want to have shared experiences. So the idea to have routes shared by a group with their own experiences is rather social event than a guided tour. So this implies the spaces, the most important spaces that characterize the citizens and their life. So those events are not just arranged for tourists and the people that visit the territory. In Asolo, during the reopening, we have had various touristic movements that have involved the city of Asolo. Those meetings are dedicated, targeted also to the territory. So the people that inhabit the territory have the possibility to rediscover their cultural background. Another aspect, another activity that we can do with the families and involves the entire family are experiments or experiences with a profile that is not just dedicated to children, but also to adults for rediscovering new materials. As you can see on this image, there are children together with the parents, and they are rediscovering painting. It is good to see that parents and children work together in the same rediscovery activity. And this is very important for children. Another aspect that is aimed at involving families in a museum where the entire history of the city is the main topic is the use of new technologies. In particular, for example, during this lockdown, we have arranged a series of activities, innovative activities that are related to the cultural heritage. For example, with tablets and smartphones and devices that younger know better than us, it is possible to make new experiences within the museum. We will see one of the stages of the route. It is a guided tour, or let's say a scavenger hunt with augmented reality. We have some riddles, and we see that younger children with parents are very attracted by this kind of experience, and they can do that themselves without a specialized operator. They look for information autonomously, and each of them can follow at its own pace. So everybody finds the clues and evidence on his own. So we need to give more information beside the ones that are already present in a museum, and this is linked to the augmented reality. And the new technologies allow us to give those information in a different way. So the users and visitors that look for clues and indications on where to go to find the next clue, they kind of visit a permanent collection that is very rich, and it discovers it gradually. So we as a museum are able to communicate better with the future generations. So let's start the video so to give you an idea of what is offered as information. Asolo has always been a place of visitors and inspired by nature and monuments. This is up on a hill and has a millenarian history that is told by this museum. We start with the scavenger hunt in this palace. We start in the prehistory, when humankind was living together with other animals like the mammoth. Do you know what is a mammoth? You can look for it at the in the floor, and you can see what are the treasures that are hidden there. So you see that those contents are then projected. So to conclude, I wanted to highlight another experience that we have made with the Museum of Asolo and was very successful. Also confirmed by the people, the visitors and the schools that have accepted our invitation to take part to the guided tours, the use of temporary exhibitions, and for smaller villages like Asolo, very often the users think that they have already looked at an exhibition, so they have not to go back to the museum, but through those temporary exhibitions, as you can see in this image, we have some works of Schifano. You see that we can have attractive works that can bring back the people to the museum. Another interesting aspect is the fact that the same inhabitants of Asolo recalled when they were at the museum when they were children, but they didn't recall it as it is now. So the fact that those extemporary exhibitions are arranged is a drive in order to relaunch the history and give the opportunity to the users or the visitors to look at the museum with different eyes. And they look at the place and at spaces in, with different eyes. This is not a secondary aspect because this stresses the importance of offering our cultural heritage to tourists, but let's remember that the first visitor is the citizen, and when the citizen is happy of or proud of his own cultural heritage, would invite his or her friend to look at this heritage. So as we are a village full of treasures, those temporary exhibitions have another aspect that is really interesting to relaunch culture for the territory. So the aim is to educate about the local history, but also to know about new artistic forms with, for example, contemporary art exhibitions that are not directly linked with the territory. But then, visiting those exhibitions, you can talk to other people, and they have visited the village because of those exhibitions, so they become also interested to the history of Asolo that is not always easy to be told. This is a form of art of the place in which you live, and this involves also the city. And I would like to conclude with that. I don't know if there is time for questions. Thanks for your attention.
Congratulations, you have just reinventing the museum, the space of museum, a new interpretation, a new function of the museum, technology, meeting point, socializing point, support families. It's not a museum. Yours in Asolo is a permanent workshop. I don't know.
Yes, it's true.
Thank you
it's
so
true.
much.
I think.
Thank you so much. Sorry, we are just very delayed, 15 minutes. I recommend to next speakers, please, to reduce a little bit the speaking, because we cannot arrive too late for the Zoom platform. Thank you so much once time more. Now it is the stage for Irene Milioni from the school to woods, outdoor lessons in the wood, from the school directly to the wood. Oh, please, in Oriveto, Cittaslow.
Okay. Buonasera, io sono Irene Milioni, sono un'insegnante di scuola primaria e mi definisco un'insegnante di una scuola slow. Questo perché i progetti della mia scuola, diciamo che sono molto vicini ai principi di Cittaslow, abbiamo fatto delle collaborazioni anche in passato e il progetto che vi presento oggi è quello della scuola al bosco, che è nato da una collaborazione con Cittaslow, con il club alpino italiano e con le scuole dell'Orvietano. Scuole di ogni ordine e grado, si parte dall'asilo nido fino alla scuola secondaria, alla scuola superiore. La finalità di questo progetto è soprattutto quello di proteggere l'ambiente, ma favorire soprattutto la conoscenza geografica, la conoscenza etnografica e anche, diciamo, conoscenza geologica della nostra zona. Questo affinché diciamo i bambini e i ragazzi cominciano ad avere interesse per la natura e a capire anche che camminare insieme si può fare, diciamo, in maniera piacevole anche, e camminare insieme favorisce anche l'apprendimento. In questo progetto diciamo che ci sono due attività precise. La prima
In this project, there are two main activities, namely to activate a path for the elementary school children, and they are assigned the various signs because through a sign they recognize their path, because if they adopt the path, they can recognize it, they can renovate it. And what is missing is to provide a name to the path, maybe next year. Because during the last 2 years, we couldn't organize many activities. The other activity regards the didactic excursions. And these are performed according to the age of the students. I want to underline that this project is very inclusive because in addition to favoring the opening to the territory, this is transversal because the children brought their family to see and watch the path they had adopted. I concentrated to the adoption of the path, and the path starts from the fence of the school and reaches a wood. After passing through the city center, you can see how the children provide the various signs on the path. They cross a vineyard, the interesting activity. Understand the sense of geography And during the period, during the following 4 months, my classes were concentrated on these excursions. This is the target. So the path we have adopted starts from the school and arrives to a specific target. This is very interesting from a historic point of view. And the higher schools reach the final destination. This kind of format has been known by other Cittaslows. When we performed the Erasmus in Iceland, we told the teachers that this project was possible to be organized together if they had the possibility to do. They welcomed the proposal, and the kindergarten children organized themselves, and we crossed the small city center, and we visited the small artisan shops where we could buy local products. The path was very short, but this was the landscape we could enjoy. From the didactic point of view, this is the group pictures with the Icelander children. By walking, I remember what Guido Petter said. He said that understanding is like following a path that in that moment someone is marking or has marked in the past. This has changed the way I teach, especially in the elementary school, where the children start to understand the territory of the area in which they live, but this path must be marked in a precise way. They have to walk at the same rhythm, and the path must be safe.
Irene is a teacher in the primary school of Sferacavallo locality of Oriveto. And it is a very, very smart and very interesting experience to export to other Cittaslow, just in Djupivogur in Iceland. Thank you so much. And now we go on with the next speaker is Pierre Boumati, Cazaubon, Cittaslow, representative in France.
Okay,
good afternoon. Welcome.
Okay,
Please.
good afternoon, everybody.
There is a video of children showed the theme of Cittaslow. It is a literary and musical tale interpreted by the children of the school.
Yes, yes. I will try to introduce quickly this video, which will be a true spectacle later in around September or October. A true spectacle of 1 hour and a half. Here in Cazaubon, we believe that the best way to ensure and perpetuate a better way of life in the future is to show and teach young people as early as possible how to reconcile the current technology of modern life with the slow mode. How to slow down the current acceleration of modern life, how to get time and pleasure to enjoy everything all along the way. That is why Manon, our music school teacher, has written a literary and musical storytelling about Leo, who is a young snail from Cittaslow, who hopes to become a musician and who is slowly looking for his best instrument while visiting the village with his snail companions. What a good idea! Leo, the language of music is the best mode of international communication. In this tale, we listen to Leo's story alternating with musical pieces as the group of snails stops at historical and bucolic sites, each time with a different instrument, taking time to slowly enjoy the heritage and the charm of the city. Can you please, the video, please?
Nous voici au sein de la médiathèque de Cazaubon, dans laquelle on peut trouver tous les livres pour la jeunesse et autres. Voilà, c'est ici que sont nés les ateliers lecture et musique pour les enfants de 2 à 8 ans.
La municipalité de l'époque m'avait sollicité pour constituer ce dossier, et pour porter le projet, ce qui fait que Cazaubon et Barbeton-les-Thermes ont été labellisés à l'occasion de l'Assemblée générale de ce 20e anniversaire.
De Cazaubon et de toute la station, avec l'histoire de Léo l'escargot, qui déambule au fil de l'histoire dans tous les lieux les plus importants de la commune. Voilà.
Thank you for your attention.
Les murs ont supporté bien des familles et des tempêtes. Le silence prend sa place, loin des voitures.
Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pierre. Very interesting. You know, it's a very important video, this here, for Cittaslow. Thanks.
Thank you.
Now it is time of Jacek Kostka. Kostka is our vice president of CITTASLOW. Please, Jacek, increasing civic awareness and competencies among the Polish Cittaslow community. So important point. Please.
Okej, witam serdecznie wszystkich zebranych.
Welcome
Pozwólcie, że
all
udostępnię
attendees,
swoją prezentację.
and I'm going to screen my presentation in an instance.
I mam nadzieję, że widać.
And hopefully you can all see my presentation.
Wow. Can you see it? Or there is a problem?
Can you see the presentation? Can you see the slides?
I don't know.
We don't see the presentation.
Oh, there is a problem with Microsoft.
We can send here the presentation. We can stop share.
Let me try once again.
Yeah. Okay.
Złośliwość rzeczy martwych.
So
Okay.
this is the maliciousness of technical things.
Okay, thank you for International Bureau for. I will ask to. Okay. Moi drodzy, pozwólcie, że na początku podzielę się z wami.
Ladies and gentlemen, my ideas. In the beginning, I would like to share some thoughts with you.
Bo jeżeli chcemy patrzeć na
Because if we
kształcenie młodzieży,
want to look at the education of the young people in the context of the activities we run in our towns, I believe it has to be done in a very holistic manner.
Otóż wydaje mi się, że udziałem mojego, myślę o osobach w latach 70. i być może po części 60.
When thinking about my generation of the 50s and 80s in the Eastern Europe, as Eastern Europe does differ tremendously to the experiences of the Western Europe, our experiences has been unique because now we've been living 30 years in democracy. My youth times was under the Soviet regime. Therefore, my experience is totally different to what we are having now in the world around us, but then would feel in this Eastern bloc, in CE, in that part of the world, very stable.
I właściwie towarzyszyło mi przez ostatnie lata takie poczucie, że stoimy przed kolejnymi dekadami. Myślę, że wam wszystkim towarzyszyło spokoju i stabilizacji, że właściwie
we would be living in very calm times, in the times of stability, so we would have very much optimism.
I oto w ciągu kilku lat dopadła nas historia. Ta
And
historia
we
pisana
were
przez
struck
duże H.
by history with a
Z jednej
grand
strony
age.
pandemia, z drugiej
On the one
strony
hand, we
rodzące
can
się
be
na
talking
całym
about the
świecie
pandemic, and on the other
tendencje
hand,
autorytarne.
we should be
I one
mentioning
postawiły przed
the
nami
authoritarian
zupełnie
regimes which
nowe
are propping
wyzwania.
up
Mówię
in the
przed
whole
nami,
world,
bo
and
zarówno
this
przed
has
nami w ramach
made us
społeczności
face up
narodowych
with
w krajach
very novel
Unii
challenges,
Europejskiej,
especially in the
społeczności
European Union,
międzynarodowej, szeroko
in the European
rozumianej,
community, in the global
ale także
community,
postawiły
broadly
nam nowe
understood.
zadania w naszych małych
Last but not
społecznościach.
least, and this has made
Jeżeli
us face
patrzymy na
very
nasze
many
małe miasto,
challenges in our
to
local
właściwie
communities,
możemy
in our
zrobić
towns.
bardzo konkretną
So,
rzecz.
looking at these
Możemy
small
pracować nad
towns,
tym,
we
żeby
can
te
do
nasze
something
społeczności
very
wzmocnić.
tangible because we
A co to
can
znaczy wzmocnić społeczność? To jest budować poczucie wspólnoty i przynależności. I tak naprawdę tworzyć dla naszych mieszkańców, a szczególnie tych najmłodszych, dzieci, młodzieży,
children, for our young people, we can develop this feeling of belonging, this feeling of community, small heavens of stability in very stormy waters of the global village. And please let me move on to the actual substance of my presentation, to further slides which I have prepared for you. So now, in the context of small towns, we should be focusing in the first place on our communities. And in these communities, young people are becoming addressees of very many actions that we've undertaken, because all of our mayors hold it very dear to make one goal materialize, to make their towns more vibrant and to make their towns a place that are widely understood by their residents, something that would come to embody the very ideals of Cittaslow. If we look at the towns in the Polish national Cittaslow network, then it turns out that a number of very interesting ideas and initiatives are being implemented, something that comes as a cross-border between very many areas and that stand for our philosophy. Let us move on to another slide, please. If we look at these actions, there's one very important that stands out. That is education. Among these educational activities, one should point to the Cittaslow Week, a joint effort by all the Cittaslow of the Polish network, something that consists in a series of very tangible activities, encounters in parks, in schools, in kindergartens, activities involving the space of cultural centers. So by and large, a lot of things are happening. These are events, but these events constitute a scheme that can be replicated and can reverberate in the tissue of our local communities. Let us move on to another slide, please. Another crux of the matter is encounters by the youth. So, look at the pandemic. Virtually, for the last year, we have missed this out very much indeed. In this slide, you will see the young people from more than a year back. Hopefully, this will come back, as this illustrates one of the most important channels of exerting impact over young people. It is very hard to educate the youth without an authentic interaction, as is the case for my presentation, because I can't talk to you in person, I can't see your faces, I can't see your facial expressions, and it is always something that is just a mere substitution. Notwithstanding all the good experiences that we've had in Poland, be it eTwinning, as was mentioned in one of the previous presentations, but sadly still there have been very negative repercussions over the youth. The fact that they could not meet up in person and enter into human interactions. Next slide, please. Another item which I consider quite crucial and is something very much an experience of the Polish Cittaslow network is the revitalization of space. How can one associate the revitalization of space with the youth education and the civic engagement, building up civic society? Nevertheless, developing space is very vital, because developing relationships cannot be built if one is not, one has no feeling of belonging to any space, and one cannot establish this kind of rapport if we don't enjoy a given space. Social activities are on a losing avenue if they cannot be run in a safe space, in a space that would be the one to foster innovation that would be interesting in many facets of this word. Therefore, the Polish Cittaslow have largely focused on the space revitalization, space revamping, and in that very space a lot is going on concerning the social tissue. Next slide, please, and I'm going to attempt at balancing the speed of my speaking to this rhythm of changing slides. An excellent revitalization example is this cultural center in the ruins of the castle in Lubawa, and this space is hugely inviting. much value can be attributed to the very beauty, to the very charm and mesmerizing character of this space. Much can be achieved because it is beautiful all around. To keep the long story short. Next slide, please. Good. Here we see magnificent Górowo, a town which holds its space very dear. Also, next slide, please. A bit faster, if possible. I'll try to speed up my presentation too. Good. Here you see a bird's eye perspective in Barczewo, something that we stewarded also within the program of Cittaslow revitalization in the environment Museo region. Next slide. Another remarkably important aspect in the area of youth education boils down to cultivating tradition. Without this item, we would be losing something very important, that is the essence of this transgenerational message as it is conveyed. Because tradition is very often understood in line with certain crafts. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you very much for this. Here we see examples of the hubs. First of all, in the city of Olsztyn, and in Olsztyn you can also visit a beautiful museum of crafts with many exhibits and items transferred from all across the Museo region, and it is very much filled with content, with substance. So we've got a living festival of herbs and crafts. So this is a sort of tradition that we could miss, but it does constitute a very vital element of the community. Next slide, please. Speaking of traditional crafts, here we can see an example of weaving workshops which are taking place in the town of Pasem. And again, this is another tradition which is living. And we see in the picture the representatives of a slightly older generation, but in these rooms you can see also the younger generation. So there is this bridge between the older and the younger generation. So there is this rapport within families which is being developed on that basis in that context. Next slide, please. And finally, recreation. During one of the lectures regarding the role of local authorities, one of the founding fathers of the local authorities and self-government reforms, when replying to a question on what local authorities can do best in favor of the inhabitants, an answer that was given 30 years ago was to ensure good living conditions and to organize spare time activities, to organize leisure time. And observe, this is very much in harmony with the Cittaslow ideals. Next slide, please. A vital element of opening up space for the youth is also about jobs development, and this is an example of how it is being achieved in the town of Górowo, i.e. a town which is very much lying on the border, has grown into a vibrant hotspot for recreation on the one hand, but also a hotspot for employment for the youth, because people can stay in their beautiful small town. If that's what the young people are planning for, they can plan for their next educational stages, so that this is also associated with their living in these small towns. And here you can see space and its merger with nature. My four speakers stressed how important it is to engage the youth into nature. We see the woodlands, we see the woods, and this bond with nature is extremely important, both in attaching the youth to a given community on Earth and also to developing inter-human relationships, because towns are not only about marble, about architecture, it's also about trees and nature. Next slide, please. And now, dear ladies and gentlemen, if we want to ask ourselves a fundamental question, which is what's essential, what's necessary in the planning for these activities, with a mindset open to young people, based on the youth education, based on the civic society development, something that would be mostly about the social inclusion. Here, answers are very easy to grasp, and they are also worthwhile remembering, especially in this ever more authoritarian world. In our Cittaslow, we need to ask people. We need to ask our people, and now let us move on to another slide. And there are these three foundations that we keep implementing in our Cittaslow. Firstly, civic budgets. It is in very many towns whereby communities find it a bit harder to refer to the authorities. This civil budgets start playing an ever greater role in the social life, especially when it comes to the youth, because the young people tend to be the ones who are the most engaged in terms of civic budgeting. These civic budgets are becoming greater and greater in their volumes, speaking of funding. And decisions which are not made by the town authorities, because we know most of the decisions are taken at the level of local authorities. If these decisions are taken by the youth, and normally it happens in the first place, what kind of project do we need to implement, and then a voting goes either via social networks, and this is precisely where the youth can decide, and this is by and large an excellent lesson on democracy, on taking care about the proper surroundings, about the proper ecosystem. So that would be point number one. Point number two is education in terms of how we exert power, because we are not irreplaceable. Please look at me and look at my beard. Youth Cities Councils. This is a very interesting initiative that we are piloting in Cittaslow in Poland. In most of them, we've got 3 city councils. Number one, this ordinary city council. Number 2, a city council composed of the seniors. And thirdly, and by the way, and this is something that is deemed most important, is the Youth City Council. And this particular body is a vehicle to teach young people, teenagers, from children to teenagers, how to function within local authorities, how they can have their part in local authorities. And this is something that has to be taught. This might be considered something obvious in the Western Europe, but in other parts of Europe, be it Eastern Europe, that we've been largely associated with the Soviet regime, this is not an obvious thing. And this is this kind of education that we are attaching a lot of importance to in Poland. Next slide, please. Okay, slides have escaped. We will do without, nonetheless. I have lost my presentation for a moment. But if we look at these most important actions, it is also worthwhile stressing that these most active youth councils are in Olsztynek, Lubawa, and Lidice, and it is very worthwhile emphasizing, as these bodies are genuinely active in the life of CITTASLOW. And thirdly, public consultations. The youth plays an important role in this process, but this process is something to be undertaken by the entire community. When it comes to public consultations, they constitute a very vital dimension in the decision-making processes happening in towns. Next slide. Importantly enough, we are exploiting a very soft tool. That is, we try to manage leisure time of the youth. In Poland, a popular chant goes, children get bored when it rains, cats and dogs. So in other words, children have to be occupied with something, and this is also a role to be played by the local authorities. And in this context, first, we need to look at the actual space where young people are supposed to be spending their leisure time. And this is followed by a series of animation, activation activities run by local authorities, be it sports, be it other intellectual activities. And it is also worthwhile enumerating some very stunning examples, and by this we are moving on to further slides. An exceptionally interesting example comes from Olsztynek, comes from the town of Olsztynek, something that refers to the Lumiere Brothers innovation. Film festival new entitled My Space. All started in 2013. The overarching goal here in this initiative is to galvanize the youth to be creative in using filmmaking tools. Films can be as long as 10 minutes maximum, an event spanning through 2 days, involving both the screenings of films and filmmaking workshops dedicated to the youth. So this filmmaking tool is something very disseminated these days, but it should be focused in one way or another. And this is precisely this goal that such initiatives should be serving. So in other words, we are teaching the young people how to use tools which they have in their everyday life in a smart manner. And we talk to them, because talking to them, having an actual conversation is also a very important item. By the way, on the occasion of establishing this festival, a cinema building in the town of Olsztynek was renovated, and these funds came from the revitalization project. So look, it is a kind of loop. So we've got finances, revitalization tools, and the youth in one place. Next slide. And this is where we see a splendid example showing us how this cinema building used to look and what it looks like now. Next slide. Next pictures related to the cinema building in the town of Olsztynek. Next slide. And here you can see a town of weavers and tailors. That is the town of Prudnik, another Polish Cittaslow. This saying goes back to the 19th century, as Prudnik was a hotspot for a textile industry in Europe. And based on that tradition, a cultural center of weaving traditions came into being. This entity is very active in maintaining these traditions and making them live among the young people. Weaving workshops are being organized. A very interesting fabric is manufactured. These workshops are devoted in the first place to the youth. And interestingly enough, it does not relate only to the Polish community. It does also relate to the Czech neighboring communities. And there is just one more additional value, and that we can see, that we can spot here, as this is very much about the intergenerational integration, because these workshops are a magnet for both seniors and the youth. And this is quite cool. Do you observe that these days it has grown very problematic to be able to actually touch some manual work which requires a certain degree of elegance. And in Prudnik, young people can actually see with their own eyes what human hands are actually capable of. You know, the weaving machine is not very much like the CNC machine, but there is a certain spiritual affinity between these two machines. There was a very interesting project that was implemented in Prudnik. The building, the seat of the Prudnik region's museum was renovated, and it got the award of Kiocciola Orange. Next slides, please. And here you can see workshops as they took place in Prudnik. Next slide. And this is the slide which will bring my speech to a close, and I'd like to invite you to visit the city that is a role model for this kind of activities, and that is the town of Biskupiec. And I've already spotted the mayor of the town of Biskupiec, whom I'd like to hand over. And I'd like to thank you very much indeed.
We know that the seed of the positive slowness in Poland is blooming. We are very proud for you. Great reality. I know. Revitalization of urban space and parks, cultivating tradition, recreation, creativity, innovation, co-decision. Oh, very good job. 35 Cittaslow in Poland. Thanks. Now another speech by Kamil Kotlowski, Mayor of Biskupiec. Please.
Witam Was wszystkich bardzo serdecznie. To prawda, słabo Was słyszę i mam problemy techniczne. Nie wiem, czy mi się uda umożliwić tutaj obejrzenie mojej prezentacji, ale na pewno nie będę...
can be started, but I'm not going to occupy as much time as my colleague did. Very briefly, I'm going to dwell on social activities that we've been running recently. Just to approach our residents, we were trying to engage in a number of initiatives for the sake of local communities that would stem from their needs. We should be talking about a vast repertoire of actions that we've been focusing on. We focused on intergenerational friendships and bonds. 2020 was far from easy for all of us. Despite these difficulties, our town took advantage of all the possibilities in implementing the projects. We were trying to cater for the needs of our residents on many layers of their life. Just to mitigate the effects of the pandemic, to support our citizens in getting on their own feet during the pandemic, I'd like to expose some of the actions that we did last year. We have masterminded a package of support for the local community, for local SMEs, lifting fees, rental fees, or different maneuvers for the property tax. We have also supported our citizens in psychological terms. Our Urban Center for Social Service engaged in telephone psychological service for people undergoing psychological breakdowns related to quarantine. We furthermore organized the action entitled Masks for Poland, thanks to which 18,000 masks were delivered to the inhabitants of our municipality. We purchased 92 laptops for schools in our municipality, something that was addressed in the first place at the most needy children. Furthermore, we arranged for the yoga classes in the park so that our residents would have some leisure activities in place to boost their well-being after a time of quarantine and lockdown. Moreover, we wanted our entrepreneurs to have some space to be able to exhibit their produce. We rent e-bikes for free. We gave them away for free, just with aim to promote healthy lifestyles. And I must admit that despite the pandemic lingering, we did not withdraw from many investments. Certainly, a number of events that would traditionally gather many people could not take place, but we refocus on to smaller scale events. And so we had a number of events with lesser audiences for our citizens, and thanks to this, the social life of our community did not cease to exist. We organized, and this is a highlight, an action for the Polska Orkiestra Świątecznej Pomocy charity. We collected 114,000 zlotys to this charity. We also did other actions on a charitable basis for other foundations. Moreover, we organized wintertime holidays for our children so that they could take part in artistic and sports activities. We organized online competitions for our youngest citizens, and these competitions could be watched online. 9 teams performed, around 140 players. And Children's Day was also organized. It did assume a different format. Our kids got wishes online from famous Polish personalities. We did engage in quizzes for our citizens on literature, on knowledge around Biskupiec. It attracted as many as 200 participants. We had mornings for children in the parks, different contests, competitions, theater performances, etc., etc. So then there have been very many children taking part in it during the summer period, around 1,000 of them. Runs were organized too. Runs that would be composed of two elements, morning runs and afternoon runs, attracting every single time dozen running participants. Street theaters, musicals, street games were other forms of initiatives that we governed. So, and it met up with a great enthusiasm and interest on the part of many people, and dozen people normally take part in such initiatives. So week by week, such initiatives are taken over and over again as they are meeting with great enthusiasm on the part of our local community. We haven't overlooked the investments, though. We're mostly focused on the areas regarding environmental stewardship and ecology in our town. In the municipality budget, we have allocated some of the funds to the reimbursement of heating boilers replacements for the more environmentally friendly items. And around 1,000 applications have come in to the municipal office. A new wastewater treatment center was also set up. Heuristic boards and charts were assembled in the touristic routes. Murals, another form of artistic activity in that we promoted, just to maintain the historical tradition. Just on a slightly different note, a COVID-only hospital also was organized in our town, and to this end we had to dedicate many initiatives to these patients, be it, for example, a sensorial garden, a gym, etc. And in the vicinities of the hospital building, trees were planted. So we are talking about much of diversity, and much of the funds have come to this end. Also, funds came from the European Union. So, by and large, our overarching goal was to develop as good strategy as possible, something that would be aimed at counteracting the negative repercussions produced by the pandemic, and up to some degree, we have managed to be successful in this regard. Our citizens, despite the restrictions and lockdown, still enjoyed their contacts and their relationships, and they were very active outdoors, which I'm very happy about. I'd like to extend my greetings to all of you. I'd like to send my best greetings and wishes, and hopefully we are going to meet in person very shortly. Thank you, and see you soon.
Kamil, congratulations to Biskupiec. Your speech was in between education and social cohesion. Of course, looking to the recovery for the pandemic, terrible tragedy of this age. Thank you so much. Congratulations for your actions. And now it is a real pleasure to have with us at their headquarters, with us, the mayor of Belluno, Jacopo Massaro. The speech of Massaro is about Belluno children, bambini, Belluno per I bambini, education for citizenship. Please, Jacopo.
Grazie mille, grazie Pier Giorgio.
Thank you, Pier Giorgio. First of all, let's say that Belluno is very known as a higher quality city. We have good indicators of environmental quality. We have lower taxes compared to other cities of our dimension. And we have the lowest rate of CO2 emission due to our disposal of waste. So we have a higher standard, life standard. But we have always believed that the quality of life is not just a value to be defended, but that we have to do something to maintain a quality of life, because it doesn't remain forever, but we have to improve it. So we have started with an idea, a project to cultivate quality of life, starting from some basic principles. The first of them is the fact that quality of life is not something that you receive passively, but it's the result of an active behavior. And it is the community that creates some quality of life when it takes care of itself. The community takes care of the community, and this means quality of life, and therefore we have to work at education. The second principle, a very important principle, is that children, we refuse to consider them as the citizens of tomorrow, but indeed they are citizens of today, but they have a different age, they have different needs from the needs that adults have. So when we educate children, we have to listen to them. So we have created a project that is not just for education, but also something that is aimed at listening to the requests of children. Thirdly, in order to educate in an effective way, it is the entire community that has to educate, not just the family and school or the best friend, but our entire community. So we need a teacher, we need parents, and it is a peer-to-peer education. And this is how the City of the Younger and Children was born, a project of community that was born in 2013 and was recognized by the presidency of the Ministries Council, the Ministry for University Research and Education. So we have important awards and acknowledgement, and this starts with the nursery school. This is the lowest stage of school from 0 to 3 years. And then it ends to with the age of 14 years old. And we can reiterate an educational project every year for 14 years for every child. They can be involved in an education project. They are active projects that allow to do experiences, and we have some tutors, we have teachers that choose in a catalog projects and experiences that can be offered to the students. Then we have the great protagonists, that are the children that are of this project. So we have various and wide subjects. We have physical activity, we have nutrition, sustainability, safety. We have taught to children how to call the emergency number in Italy in order to, when they understand that somebody is in difficulty. We have taught about the common goods, the diversity of people, respect for people. We have involved them in a series of projects like you see in the photo. I teach the symbols of our flag, of the colors of our flag. In this photo, you can see how we teach how you can differentiate waste. We have also asked to our children to redesign our squares. They have done a very long study. They have dealt with the planning, town planning, and we have asked them to design their preferred loving school. We have taken account of their indications and tries to follow their ideas to make them understand that also their ideas and their voice is important, is relevant, because we are a community. You can see here the education of traffic safety. We have also other projects. We have involved also the local police, other institutional subjects, and the first effects are already visible. You see here a final photo of the end of the experience. This is an interesting product that is an effect of this initiative. We have given the honorary citizenship to children that were born in Belluno, but their strangers, foreigners, and they didn't have the citizenship. So we wanted to give some honorary citizenship. And within this path, the children have asked to the administration to give this citizenship to their friends, because they couldn't understand why those children could not be considered Italian. And this is surely one good example. Since 2013, we have already seen a lot of fruits and results. For example, at home, I differentiated ways in a wrong way. My children said to me and explained to me how I did have to differentiate the ways, because they had attended one of our courses. What do I want to say? We try to build a better society, because this is quality of life, of course, but through the children, we are affecting also adults, because it is from them that we learn. So the idea is to increase the quality of life through our initiative. And we have so good acknowledgement from the public administration. So we hope that we could continue. I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Experience in Belluno. Normally, we are thinking about transgenerational activities from children to parents and grandparents. In your experience, it's vice versa, from children to parents and grandparents. Great. Very good, very Cittaslow spirit. Thank you so much. Great. And now, in the end, but not least, Timo Nattemeyer, mayor of Bad Essen. Bad Essen is Cittaslow in Germany. Good evening, good late afternoon. They are Burmeister. Please, children's activities in the kindergartens.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Timo Nattemeyer. I'm the mayor of Bad Essen in Germany, as you've said. Bad Essen is a spa in the northwest of Germany. You can say we're about halfway between Cologne and Hamburg, so you can roughly imagine. Our community has about 16,000 inhabitants. We've been part of the Cittaslow network now since 2016. And we've learned a lot during this time. We have learned a lot from the other members of the German network. We appreciate the exchange of ideas very much. At the same time, I'm honored to be able to participate in an international conference for the first time today. Bad Essen has specialized in different areas within the Cittaslow movement. Firstly, there is slow tourism, on which we have already organized several conferences. And secondly, there are 3 of our kindergartens, which aim to teach children the values of sustainability at a young age. And it is the latter that I would like to report on today. It all started with our kindergarten in the district of Lintorf, which has taken up the theme of fair trade and thus became the first of our kindergartens to become a Cittaslow partner. 2 years ago, this institution started to put fair trade, global thinking, and learning at the center of its work. That means the children learn about regional and seasonal products, topics such as inclusion, fairness, environmental and climate protection, democracy and participation are dealt with in everyday life at the kindergarten. Values such as empathy, consideration, responsibility, and commitment are to be promoted and exemplified. For this, the facility was recognized in November 2019 with the award as a Fair Kita. which means fair kindergarten. This made the kindergarten the first fair kindergarten in the state of Lower Saxony, here in the north of Germany. The concept originated in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, and it came to their attention during a further training course for kindergarten teachers. So far, there are 251 fair kindergartens all over Germany. The concept according to which that kindergarten in Lintorf works takes the children playfully around the world. They learn a lot about the countries and continents and learn to deal respectfully with diversity. Using Africa as an example, the children learned that fresh drinking water can't be taken for granted. As a result, they also use it more sparingly. Drinking glasses, for example, are only filled to the mark. Only when the glass is empty, they are given more. And 2 water taps in the kindergarten have been completely turned off. Water is thus no longer taken absolutely for granted. Other topics of sustainability are taken up with examples from Peru and India. The children learn how children live in other countries and what problems they have. It is about the production of food that we import in Europe, or it is about child labor and the lack of social security. At the beginning, the children are a little perplexed about how they can improve the lives of children in other parts of the world, but they can learn that there is the fair trade sign on bananas and on many other products. It stands for fair trade and better prices for the farmers. Those who buy fruit with a fair trade label are helping other people in the world in a concrete way. The fair trade commitment of the Lintorf kindergarten was recognized by the German CITTASLOW network by making the kindergarten an official CITTASLOW partner. Also in 2019, that is roughly parallel to the fair trade activities of our kindergarten in Lintorf, another kindergarten in the district of Wittlage started to deal with CITTASLOW. Sustainable living can become an integral part of early childhood education. That is the guiding principle here. We want the children to learn to take responsibility for themselves and for their environment. For example, when it came to planning the new outdoor area, the ideas that the children collected were the basis for all further steps. Democracy in kindergarten, well, that is a bit difficult to imagine, but at least in part it can work. In the Wittlage kindergarten, the children learn to experience nature with all their senses, to be more mindful of themselves, of others, and of the environment. CITTASLOW is also reflected in the menu. There, regional and organically produced food is used in order to realize a sustainable lifestyle in terms of eating as well. In this way, the kindergarten is the second kindergarten in Bad Essen to fulfill the CITTASLOW partnership with content. In 2020, shortly before the outbreak of the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic, another municipal kindergarten in the Brockhausen district finally became a CITTASLOW partner. So now there are 3 kindergartens in Bad Essen that stand up for CITTASLOW. In this institution too, the kindergarten teachers show the children and again and again how to live sustainably in everyday life through activities and projects. They deal with waste separation, saving electricity, water supply, and regularly go on excursions to the nearby forest. Besides lots of exercise in nature, nutrition is also high on the agenda. Children and teachers deal with questions about the origin and the preparation of food, for example, in the kitchen workshop and at the joint breakfast. The daily food comes from local producers, and the children learn about the cycles and nature in their own garden. The head of the kindergarten recently said to me, we want to strengthen the kids to become ambassadors of a sustainable and healthy lifestyle themselves. And that is an amazing aspect, I would say. Children carrying the message of CITTASLOW out into the world, starting with their parents and their own family. And that is why my suggestion today is, as CITTASLOW cities, bring CITTASLOW into your kindergartens. There is not necessarily a prefabricated ideal concept for this, but once you start, many ideas quickly emerge. The bottom line is, it is worth getting started. Thank you for your attention, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you here today.
Thank you so much, Timo. Thank you, Mayor. Very interesting. We have in the network of CITTASLOW many experiences about kindergarten, but you made us want to visit the kindergarten in Bad Essen, surely. Thank you for your speech. Very interesting. The concept of children ambassador of the concept of CITTASLOW, it's very true, very valid and strong, because it's natural for babies and children understand before adults what is the value of CITTASLOW. Thank you so much. And so the conclusion to our super president, Mauro Migliorini. Thank you, please.
Grazie, Pier Giorgio. Beh, un ringraziamento.
I would like to thank you all and your contributions, and for having accepted the invitation of providing your experiences to this international table, bringing the values of CITTASLOW in the education of youth. These values are calibrated on the world of school for a true slow pedagogy with the involvement of teachers and the community. Everything is shared with others. We have seen practical and concrete examples of good practices that can be reproduced with a small commitment and with the small economic funds. We have appreciated new collaboration methods with different schools of every level. But we have also heard about green classes that yesterday were utopia, but today are very actual, such as the use of new spaces for training and the education, the use of new technologies, and the months of lockdown were useful for our communities to be ready for restarting. Museums as places for meeting people, for socializing, the adoption of paths that becomes love for the environment, but also lessons of geography and cartography. The revitalization and recovery of the redevelopment of the urban spaces like for social cohesion. Many artistic activities, sports activity, days dedicated to children, activities in the parks, theaters in the streets. All this is linked to the improvement of life quality and to mitigate the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to thank you all, and I would like to leave the floor to our secretary. Thank you, President.
The speakers, very good, very important speaking and speeches. And tomorrow, for the followers, their followers, tomorrow there is the last Cittaslow webinar, Cittaslow Academy webinar, 11 June, 10 a.m. in the morning, dedicated to Cittaslow tourism and outdoor, Cittaslow tourism experiences from Europe to China, and also outdoor, overall bike outdoor, very important webinar tomorrow for these activities. Thank you so much once more time for your attention.
See you next time.
See you.